everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Active Love Adoptions podcast. My name is Alyssa, and I'm here with my mom, Heidi. And today we're here with Dr. Rob Scheer, who is the author of A Forever Family Fostering a Change One Day at a Time, One Child at a Time.
Mhm.
And he also is the co founder of Comfort Cases, and he has just been so kind as to just kind of come in and share and just chat with us today. So we're so excited to hear from you. So thank
Yes.
you.
Thank you for
Well,
coming on.
well, thank you both for having me. I think anytime you have an opportunity to talk about our future, you have to take it. And
Yeah.
why I say that is because kids who are in our foster care system, they don't belong to you. They don't
Yeah.
belong to me. They belong to us, to
Yeah.
us.
That's
And to shine that spotlight on kids who are waiting for their forever home, like our five kids did,
yeah.
yeah, I'm going to take that opportunity. So thank you.
Yes. Oh,
Love
well,
it.
no, we love having you on. And obviously, we love adoption in general since, I mean, the agency that we both work for. My mother is actually the founder of. So,
Been our whole life, basically.
yeah,
Yeah.
I have eight adopted siblings, so there's 10 of us total.
So I'm the youngest of 10,
Are
but my
you?
mother, but my mother had 10 kids.
Oh, see,
Wow.
See,
yeah.
my mother had 10 kids.
Mhm.
My mother had been married 6 times. We lived in and out of every shelter in Maryland,
Um,
Virginia, DC. I never remember a holiday. I don't remember a birthday cake. I don't remember her ever saying she loved me.
um,
Um, and I ended up going into the foster care system
mhm.
at the age of 12, carrying a trash bag.
Yeah.
And my brothers and sisters, I was the baby, and they were older. They had already started falling to the wayside: teenage pregnancy, drug addiction, incarceration. Um, we know that how our society does. You put the F word in front of our names and you think we are less than, that we
Yeah.
deserve less than. And we fill the penitentiaries. We are the ones that are laying on the benches that you see, because the community has to realize they created us. They created us. And I realized after my children started arriving from the system that, I had to do something, because if I didn't do something, how could I look at my kids and allow another kid to experience what I experienced and what they experienced?
Yeah. That's amazing though. I mean,
Yeah.
that you went into it. So tell us, I mean, your road to what you were able to do
Yeah.
and where you come from. Um, do you want to touch a little bit back
Yeah.
on that?
So, when I was 12, and understand, people need to understand the word foster care is actually defined that you are a person who does not live with your family of origin. Okay. So back in the 60s, 50s, 70s, it wasn't unusual for a neighbor to take the kid in. It wasn't unusual for a auntie who wasn't an auntie, or a
Yeah.
Grammy who wasn't a Grammy. So I was one of those kids that went to a neighbor, and it was horrific. The trash bag, always feeling that I was less than, and I wasn't like their three biological kids. And
Mm,
then I turned 18. It was the fall of 1984, and I really didn't think much about foster care, to be honest with you. I just wanted to be a kid that wanted people not to look at them because I
yeah.
had less than. My shoes had holes in them. Even though I lived with a family, they really, I look back, and when I wrote my memoir, I people say how I literally lifted my foster mother up, even though it was a very trying time for me, and she was with a very abusive spouse. Um, I don't talk to her, by the way, and that's her choice. But the thing is that when I turned 18, I was handed a trash bag again, and I became
Yeah.
homeless. And I literally lived on the streets of Northern Virginia my entire senior year of high school. And at that moment when I graduated, and by the way, I had to borrow the cap and gown, I nobody clapped for me when I crossed that stage. I
Yeah.
remember as that young boy at 18 walking off that stage and not going back to my seat. I remember at that moment realizing that community has only given me three choices. And choice number one, I give up. Suicide rate in foster care is higher than we've ever seen. Choice number two, I give in. I do exactly what you expect of me. I commit the petty crimes. I fill your detention centers. As we all talk here today, 80% of our death row inmates were touched or in foster care. 82% of our people who are experiencing homelessness was in foster care. And for me, I wanted to pick choice number three, and that's give it all I got. And that's what I did. I joined the United States Navy, and I did not join the Navy to take care of any of you. I joined the Navy because I was hungry. I needed a place to lie my head. And by the way, I took it and I built it. And I became a very successful businessman. And as I looked back, I realized that the only thing that was important was me, me, and me. Built my
Yeah.
big house, bought my expensive cars, went on my trips. And 21 years ago, I met my husband. And I remember saying to my husband on our very first date, "Do you want to be a dad?" And he said, "What?" He said, "That is the craziest question to
That's
ask
a
on the first
crazy
date." I said,
first
"You know
date
what?"
question.
I said, "I'm in my late 30s and I'm not wasting any more time on any other people if I'm not, because I want to be a dad. It was
Yeah.
my
Yeah.
dream."
Yeah.
And he said, after I get my master's, and he said, I've always thought about being a parent. So that's all it took. And so
Yeah.
my husband and I, 5 years after being together, we decided to finally move in and build our family. And of course, I wanted to adopt overseas. And my
Right.
husband was like, "Wait a minute. Why are we not adopting out of foster care?" And I was like, "Dude, are you kidding me?" I was like, "I know about those kids." He said, "Rob, you were one of those kids." And
Yeah.
he was,
Exactly.
yeah, he was right. I was one of those kids.
You
And I
were.
was so worried about what people would think about me that I was
Mhm.
scared to tell my story. And
Yeah.
so my husband and I, we filled out all of our paperwork. We went down, we got licensed, and we waited. And the
Yeah.
phone rang. And I remember that day as if it was yesterday, 17 years ago. The social worker called and said they had a brother and sister. And I was like, "Whoa, wait a minute. We only want one kid."
Right.
And they
Back
said,
up.
yeah, they said, "But we have a little girl who's 4 and her little brother who's 2.
Oh.
You'll be their third placement,
Oh.
and they really need a place to sleep tonight." And I remember my husband saying to me, "Remember, I told you that if they called for siblings, we would never split them up."
Yeah.
And like I had been split up, and he was so right. And my husband, he comes from a different stock than me. His parents have been married 50 some years. He grew up in the Midwest. He didn't even know the word foster care until he met
Yeah.
me. And so at that night, when my daughter Amaya and my son Makai arrived, I was absolutely floored that both of them had a trash bag. I was shocked that how could we be a society that say we care so much about children, but we forget such a huge population. I always think about it. Nelson Mandela said it very clearly. Each and every one of us in society are judged by the way we treat our children. As I said to you earlier, kids in foster care don't belong to you. They don't belong to me. They belong to us. And if we're judged by the way we treat our children, we would fail.
Yeah.
Um, but I wanted it to be different. And as I saw those kids arrive with those trash bags, I knew that we could do better. But for me, it was just about being a dad. And month one, month two, month three goes by, and all of a sudden the phone rings, and there's two more kids.
Oh,
And
wow.
there's my little son, Grayson, who was 2, and his brother, Tristan, who was 6 months. And all
Yeah.
of a sudden, we went from two guys living in DC, going to cocktail parties, to two guys with 4 kids and all
Kids.
four in diapers.
Oh,
Oh my
yeah.
gosh. That's a
Woo, I
big
remember
shift.
that.
I've been there. I
You
was there
know
with
it.
you. I
You
was there
know
with
it.
you.
I remember my mother-in-law saying, "Are you guys crazy?" And I said, "You
Like,
better
what are
believe
you
it."
doing?
I said, "You better believe it." But you know what? We made it work. And
Yeah.
as the years went by and we came into our second year, I remember looking at our kids and thinking, you haven't had any contact with anyone in your family of origin. And how long are we going to allow kids to sit on a sideline waiting for adults to be adults? And I
Yeah.
remember saying to Reese that I can't continue to go down this road. I said, we have to adopt the kids. And I remember the social
Yeah.
worker saying, you're going to file for adoption and you're going to lose these kids because the judge hasn't made their goal adoption completely. And I said, you know what? At least I'm able to look at these kids and say, you know what? Your dad fought for you
Yeah.
because I can't not continue to keep them floundering when
Yeah.
no one is visiting. I said once a month, once a week, we go and sit in a room and no one shows. I said, my daughter is now almost 6 years old. For 2 years, she hasn't seen anybody. And don't tell me that you don't think this is affecting her. And
Yeah.
so with that, my husband and I, we actually hired our own attorney and we went in for the fight and we
Yeah.
filed adoption on all four of our children. We had to bring in bonding study experts. We had to bring in an expert who had to testify that because we were white and our kids were black, that we weren't going to change them. We had to bring in an expert to say that because we had three boys that we weren't going to turn them gay.
Yeah.
Oh
And
my gosh.
so, you
Yeah.
know, weeks after, that we continued on, and finally it took several months, but the judge awarded us the
Oh, that's
most
awesome.
greatest gift ever, which was to be the father of all four of our
Oh, that's
kids.
amazing.
And I remember that day as we sat in that courtroom, the judge looked at our kids and said, what's your name? And my daughter looked at the judge and said, my name's Amaya Shear. And he looked at my
No.
son and he said, what is your name? And he said, my name is Makai Shear. And he looked at my other son. He said, what's your name? He said, my name's Grayson Shear. And he looked at my baby. And my baby was 2. And he said, so what is your name? And he said, my name is Tristan Shear, but everybody calls me Bubby.
Bubby.
That was the greatest day of my
I bet
life.
that was just me. Just hearing them like say that that is their
Their
name. I
last
bet
name.
that
Yeah.
just filled you with so much just
Oh,
Oh, God.
oh, let me tell you
just
that
hearing them
day,
say it, I'm sure.
it was a gift. It was a
Yeah.
gift. But after immediately we adopted them, I tried to fill them with everything that I had missed. Passports, trips, designer clothes, private schools. But 13 years ago, I realized that as a parent, I had failed. See, we as parents have two responsibilities. Number one, we must teach our children their legacy, and people must understand your legacy is not what you take, it's what you give. And then we must remember that empathy is not in our DNA. Empathy is taught. And I remember my husband came into my office. He'd given up his career to be a stay-at-home dad. And he was like, okay, let's do the toy drive. And I was like, oh, here we go again. We're going to do a toy drive for a bunch of the needy kids and feel good about ourselves. You know what we do? We pat ourselves on the back and then the next day we don't even think about those kids. And
Yeah.
half of the toys that we collected are broke already. And he
Yeah.
said, Rob, wait a minute. What do you want to do? And I said, I want to eliminate trash bags in foster care in DC. He said, you are BS crazy. I said, I know, that's why you married me. I said, we can do it. And so we gathered members of our church, we gathered some local politicians, my senior staff, and I shared the story of a 12-year-old little boy who had walked into a system that was completely shattered, a 12-year-old little boy who was handed a trash bag with no hope, the 4 kids who had arrived in my home with not even a baby's blanket or a toothbrush, and how that this was unacceptable, that we needed to make sure that every single child got their own brand new pair of pajamas with a tag. I wanted every child to get their own lotion, their own shampoo, their own conditioner, and their own bar of soap. Kids walk into a house of strangers. We expect them to assimilate like that. That's not acceptable. I want every child to get a toothbrush and toothpaste. And by the way, my beautiful teeth and my teeth are beautiful. They cost me an arm and a leg
Oh yeah.
because nobody bothered to give me dental hygiene when I was
Yeah.
in the system.
No,
And
I'm
I
sure.
know that when my one of my kids had arrived, they had 4 cavities at their young age because
Yeah.
nobody had stopped to teach them the importance of taking care of their teeth. And by the way, from that day to today, never had a cavity since has one of my kids. But I also wanted to make sure kids had an activity. Most kids who enter our system actually come into the back of a police cruiser. They go to a holding center. You can call them rainbow rooms or whatever you want to make yourself feel better. These are nothing but holding centers with broken crayons, ripped up books, and broken toys. I wanted kids who are under the age of 10 to get a brand new coloring book and crayons, and I wanted kids over the age of 10 to get a journal and a pen and pencil set. I wanted every child to get an age appropriate book because if we educate our children's mind, we will educate our future because they are our leaders of tomorrow. And then I want every kid to get a stuffy because I don't care whether you're a newborn or you're 59 years old, we all love a good
Yeah.
stuffed animal.
I do. I have a million of them on my bed.
Oh, and then finally, my son Grayson, he was 5 at the time when we packed our very first case. He's now 18. He said, Daddy, we have to put a blankie in every case. And I was like, a blankie? I was like, Grayson, these kids are not cold. He said,
Mm-hmm.
I know, Daddy, but every time they wrap themselves up in their blankie,
Oh,
they know we love them.
yeah.
My friends, that's what we all want.
Yeah.
We want to be loved. We want to know we matter. And so with that, we packed a case and another and another. And in the last 13 years, we have packed and delivered over 300,000
Oh
backpacks.
my gosh.
That's
That's amazing.
incredible.
Wow. We have delivered them
That's
to all
amazing.
50 states,
Oh,
DC,
that's
Puerto
amazing.
Rico. And then in 2021, when we were all figuring out what the heck to do because of that thing called the pandemic, my family
Mhm.
was actually in the UK building a center there where
Oh,
we actually serve over 84,000 children in the United
oh,
Kingdom.
that is
You
awesome.
know, this journey has taught me something. So long, I had so much resentment for my community. I was angry with my community. How could you have failed me? And then I realized my community, they didn't fail me. They didn't. My community wasn't educated about me. And so I made it a point that I was going to leave my career and go around the country and truly educate people about kids like me, to understand that we are not the problem of your system, but we are your solution. That to tell them that if they take a small investment, the payoff will be so big. And that, as I was doing that in 2019, I walked into a school to share my story. My memoir had just come out of Forever Family. And I walked up on stage and I told my story, basically the story that I shared with the two of you today. And a young boy walked up to me and he said, Mr. Scheer, will you sign my book? And I said, of course. What is your name? He said, Alex. I said, Alex, tell me something about yourself. He says, I have nothing to tell. I said, Alex, we all have a story. He said, no, Mr. Scheer, my story's like yours. I've been in foster care since I was 5. I've been in 11 homes, 6 schools. I am 18 years old and I'm getting ready to age out and I'm going to be homeless like you.
Oh my
I
gosh.
looked at that young man and I said, not on my watch. I handed him my business card and I said, Alex, I got to give another talk, but I want you to call me. We're going to figure this out. And I looked over at the principal and she had a tear going down her eye. She said, Mr. Shear, Alex has a 3.6 and we don't know what to do. He's fallen through the cracks of child welfare. I said, have him call me. I went home that night and I told Reese and the kids about meeting this young boy. And one of my kids said, Dad, if he calls, invite him to our house for dinner. I said, what a great idea. And the next day, Alex called me. He said, hey, Mr. Shear, this is Alex. Do you remember me? I said, I'm not that old. I said, I said, Alex, give me the phone number to your foster parents. I said, I want to pick you up this Saturday and bring you to our house for dinner. He said, the family that you write about in your book? I said, no, Alex, I have a fake family. Course, teenagers. And so I
Yeah.
picked Alex up on that Saturday and I brought him to our house. And Reese and I decided to go out to dinner with the kids that night. And we're sitting in a restaurant, and my son Tristan was 10. And he looks over at Alex and he says, Alex, you can order anything off the menus, and my dads don't care. And he was like, I can order anything. He's like, I'm getting the shrimp fajitas. And if I don't eat them all, I never get in trouble. My daughter Amaya looked at Alex and said, Alex, haven't you been to Guapo's? And Alex says, I don't remember the last time somebody took me to a restaurant. My friends, at that moment, I realized as a dad, I'd done my job because I saw the empathy flow out of my children's eyes. We ate, went to Dave and Buster's, dropped Alex off at his foster parents' house, and I get in the car and it's quiet. And all of a sudden, one of my kids said, Daddy, we have to do something for Alex. I said, I know, guys. Daddy just, I don't know what to do. And they said, we have to bring him home. And I said, what? And they said, we have to bring him home. I looked at my husband and my husband said, what's one more?
Yeah.
My husband and I were the very first couple in the state of Maryland to petition the courts to have a child from foster care come and live with us without a stipend. The
Wow.
judge said to me, Mr. Shear, why would you do this? I said to the judge, as I say to all of your listeners, every child deserves a foundation. Every child deserves to know there's someone they're rooting them on. Every child deserves to feel what it feels like to be loved unconditionally. I looked over at my son and he was crying. He said, Pops, you've changed my life. I said, no, buddy. I said, you've changed our lives. I said, I only have one regret. The judge said, Mr. Shear, what is your regret? And I said, I didn't walk him to kindergarten, but now I get to walk with him for the rest of his life. My son asked us a year after that to please adopt him. My husband and I immediately called our attorney and we legally adopted our son. Our kids are now 25, 21, 19, 18, and 17.
Wow,
Wow.
that's amazing. That's amazing.
That's so incredible.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I'm just thinking because we mostly deal with newborns here, and that's how ours worked. But
Mhm.
there's children across the board. I mean, we do service projects every month. The agency does. Um, And we work a lot with teen homeless shelters and with Davis County too, that's in our area. They have a program for high school students who are couch hopping from couch to
Yeah,
couch and don't
Mm-hmm.
have,
been there.
yeah, and don't have homes. And so, and we try to bring awareness to those also by, doing our service projects and then
Yeah.
putting it on Facebook
'Cause
so
those
that
are a
people,
lot of those kids are the ones that don't get talked about. Because you hear
yes.
about like all like the little kids, but like
Hmm.
not about like the older ones that are about to age out and that really don't have anywhere to go or
Right.
anywhere
Yeah.
to be looked at.
Hmm.
It's a shame how we treat kids. It's a shame that we built a system. And by the way, if a child comes into foster care, we as a society have already failed. We've
Yeah.
already failed.
Hmm.
64% of kids in foster care, and we have one child every 2 minutes, 700 a day that enter the system. And we know that 64% of those kids enter the system because of one word, and that word is neglect. And by the way, that word is defined as poverty. Poverty. My privileged white self does not get looked at the same way as my four kids of color look at.
Yeah.
And yes, mom can't afford the electricity because it's so damn expensive. And so she has no electric. But guess what? She's getting up every day and she's going to work. But guess what?
Yeah.
Neighbor doesn't come and knock on the door and say, is there something I can help you with? No,
Yeah.
what does neighbor do? Call CPS. What does
Yeah.
CPS do? Come and snatch the kids immediately before trying to find out. And if you can give a stranger a check every single month, why can't we give that mom an upper hand? Why
Yeah.
can't we help her? Mom leaves her 5-year-old with her 12-year-old because she can't afford daycare, but she's going to work, two jobs. Neighbor calls CPS, kids get
Mhm.
taken. What happened to society when we realize that we are stronger when we support each other? You
Mhm.
got to get back to where we used to be, where I can knock on your door and say, please, can I borrow you a cup of sugar?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, can I please have a light bulb? You
Mhm.
know, we got to get back to that. If not,
Yeah.
society is failing faster than we could ever imagine.
Yeah. How do we get back there?
I will tell you how we get back to that, my friend. The
Hmm.
thing is doing exactly what you have allowed us to do today, giving platforms for us to talk about this, to normalize this, to make us realize what our wrongs were so we can correct them to make them a right. And by the way, you can never change the right until you admit the wrong.
Yeah.
Okay? Simple as that. I'm not saying throw salt in that wound and talk about the wrong, but I'm saying you have to accept your wrongs before you can make them right. See, as a dad, it's a hard journey. It's a hard journey as for any parents, but I say this all the time. I am the luckiest person in the world, and I am the richest person in the world. Why? Because I look at these five amazing humans and I know that they gave me the opportunity to even be a part of their spark. And for me, that's change right there.
Yeah. It is. That's the thing is I think that people need to realize too is what a gift it is to be a part of their life, for us, right? That's
And understand that they have a life book.
yeah.
I always say this to our kids. I have never kept you from your birth parents. Okay.
Yes.
We have been vocal and honest and upfront. And I have always said to birth families, my door is never locked.
Yeah.
And my phone number has never changed in 20 years.
Yeah.
Okay. And you have that number. You want
Mhm.
to come and break bread with us? Come. If you want to come to those milestone things, graduation, 16th birthday, 18th birthday, college going off, join me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Stand with me. The sad part is not all the birth family has done that. But the nice part is some have. And it has shown our children that how important they are. Because that, at the end of the day, is what this is all about. It's not about us. It's about building a stronger future for all of us.
Yeah. Yes. And that's one thing that we find out too with adoption with the newborns is the open families. So to have the biological and the adoptive families come together and put the child before anything else, right? And I think that that's where we all need to go hand in hand together is by putting the children above anything else and taking care of them.
And let me tell you, and as I told you, I have one girl. She's
Yes.
definitely my princess. She is a daddy's girl, no doubt. Always has been. And I remember when she graduated high school, and my dream was that she graduate high school and head off to college, but her dream was to find her birth family. And that's what she did. And she went to live with her birth father for a short period of time, and it wasn't what she expected.
Yeah.
And she went to live with her birth mother for a short period of time, and it wasn't what she expected. And I remember on that August 3rd day that she called me, and I'll never forget the day. And she said, Daddy, I want to come home. And I said, Sweetie, I've always told you the door is open. And my daughter came home, and I remember sitting down, and and was I hurt when she left? You better believe it. I'm not going to sit here and tell all of you a bunch of BS. I was
Yeah.
devastated. I was crushed. I was like, how could you go find somebody? What have I? I've been. And then I
And you're only
realized.
human. You have the right to feel how you feel.
But at the time I thought it's not what I've been. It's
Yeah.
what
Yeah.
she needed. And so I remember when I looked at her and I sitting there, and I just was so proud of her that, she didn't have any ill will about them. She just was like, Dad, I was raised differently. And now my daughter is 21 years old. She's in college.
Yes.
And she still lives at home, and I'm okay with that. By the way, I have all five kids still living at home, and I'm okay.
I have all four of mine, so I'm
Yes,
not going to say anything.
yes.
Yeah.
Again, people come up to me all the time. I mean, we've been on every talk show, magazine, and they're always like, "Oh, look at your beautiful family. Oh my gosh, I don't see any color." And I'm like, "Then you don't see my four black kids that are standing here." I mean, the fact is that if you think for 1 minute, that my kids of color are not treated differently, then you have never
Yeah.
walked next to a person of color. Okay? And
True.
so, again, I continue to keep saying that we all must normalize this.
Mhm.
We all must understand. And if you walk into my house and, pictures that hang on our wall, okay, they actually represent my children, my husband's children, because kids and people need to see each other. Okay? We need to see each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, and see, I have to be honest. I am one that has said the no color thing because, and I think it's different because I, s- I understand that everybody else sees my children their color first. That's what they're going to recognize. But for me, I see my children.
Right. And I see my kids, but I also
You know
see
what I
my
mean?
kids. I,
Yes.
I, I, I totally agree with you.
Okay.
But you also
Yes.
understand, from people that, we are privileged,
Yeah.
and, kids of color, there's so many different things that we had. I mean, we had to be educated. And by the way, we
Oh,
still get educated. Okay, I'm going to tell you. I mean, I love it when people walk up to me and they say, "Oh, you have one girl?" I'm like, "Yeah." And she's got two dads? Yeah. "Oh, what did you do when she had her period?" I said, "I told her she couldn't have it." I mean, what the hell do you think I did when she had her period? I educated her. I put strong women around her.
yeah.
Yeah.
The thing that again that I say is that yes, we see our children,
Yeah.
okay, and I do. I love Alex as much as I love Makai, and I love all my kids, and we love each and every one of them a little
Yes.
differently. But the
Yes.
thing that I always continue to remind my children is be you. Be
Yes.
you, and if you are that person who needs to be you and have all of the things at it, that's fine.
Mhm.
Dad, I'm there. I'm there. But I will say this as we wrap this up, my friends.
Mhm.
Two gay men raising five kids. Not one of my kids like the theater. Not one of
Yeah.
my kids are in choir. Not
Mhm.
one of my kids love show tunes. Not one of my kids know who the hell Barbara Streisand is. So I don't know what people thinking gay people can't raise kids, because we seem to be doing pretty damn well.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. The stereotypical things that you would think.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. She likes show tunes.
I do.
Yeah, see? I can't even get my daughter. I said to my daughter I was like, honey, let's go to New York and see a Broadway show. She's like, Dad, that's not me. I'm like,
You're
where
like,
did I go
What
wrong?
happened? What happened?
yeah, Alyssa will go with you.
Oh, good. Alyssa, I'm gonna recruit you, honey.
Yeah, let's go see Wicked. Let's go see Hamilton. I want to see them all. Beetlejuice.
Oh, let's do it. I've seen them and I love them, and I'll see them again and again and again.
Yeah,
I'm here.
she loves that stuff. So, but and that's the thing though, is that all four of my children, none of them are the same. So they were raised by the same parents, but they're all polar, they're completely different and bring their own
They bring their own. My youngest son,
stuff.
he is 17 years old, and um, I look at him all that, he drives an F-150 truck. He's got the big old belt buckle. He loves his country tunes, and I'm like, dude, you're the countryest black kid I've ever met in my life.
That's
He's like, I
so
know, Dad, isn't
hilarious.
that cool? Like, yeah, you out there with Shabuzi, I get it.
Yep.
Um, but yeah, so and
Hilarious.
I really do think that as parents, if we give our children the wings to be able to truly extend them, they will fly higher than we could ever imagine.
Yeah, that's
Mhm.
very true.
Mhm.
That's true. And it looks like you're giving a lot of kids wings
Well, thank
Yeah.
you.
with
Thank
your
you.
with what you're doing and how you're helping and benefiting. We appreciate you being on, and I know that you have time crunches, so we have small windows of time with you.
I really appreciate it. Listen, anybody that wants to learn more about how they can be part of this amazing wave
Yeah.
that we're
Where can
having,
people find you, your
Yeah,
book? Give us
yeah.
all.
yes, yes, please go to comfortcases.org. You can actually order our book from there. I will personally sign it.
Isn't that funny?
If you want to, you can go to HBO Max and you can tune in to Somewhat Familiar, episode 5, which is about my husband and I and our
Oh
kids and our
wow.
organization. We have several other, different types of platforms that we've been hosting on that we would love for people to really help us. We are passing laws and bills throughout our country that trash bags will no longer be used. But guess what? I can't do this by myself. I need all of us to do this because,
Mhm.
again, all of us are responsible for these kids. So, ladies, thank you.
Thank you.
Heidi, thank you for loving unconditionally
Yeah.
because, as hard as that can be at times, it's also the biggest gift. So,
Thank
thank
you.
you. Have an amazing day.
Thanks, you too. Thank
Yes.
you.
Take
Thank
care.
Yeah.
you.
Bye.
Bye.